Welcome to the Mindset Advantage podcast with Dr. Trisha Gardner and Elliot Rose. So Trisha, what have you got for us this week?
Hey guys, actually a new study has just come out that I'm pretty excited about because it shows that making a small change to your diet could reduce the risk of depression. And what I really like about this study is that it's a longitudinal study. It's been done actually for many years. It started in 1999 and they've been following the people over all these years. And they've been following them to figure out the relationship between like diet and exercise and many different health outcomes. But one of the outcomes was actually depression. And why this is interesting is because rates of depression are extremely high and they've been going higher and higher over the last about 4 decades, I would say. Bottom line from this study is a Mediterranean diet that includes fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, things like that can prevent depression. And what's very interesting is you don't have to go on a full up, vegetarian diet. Even if you do relatively small changes where you add some of these foods in every day is enough to reduce depression risk. And I thought that was super exciting, Elliot.
Yeah. And in terms of the foods that they're saying, is it just any fruit and vegetable or are they quite specific?
They were not quite specific. And what I'll do is I will actually get the link to the actual study and we can put it, on the page
on the
we
webpage.
put the show
Excellent.
up. People can go and have a look at it. It's pretty dense, but the bottom line is fruits, vegetables, legumes, which would be like beans, nuts, a little bit of fish, those sorts of things. They are enough in small quantities, even as long as you're doing it consistently, to reduce the rate of depression. Now, what also this will follow, I think, if it's going to help with depression, we're probably going to find down the line that it's assistive with anxiety and things like that. So keep your eyes and ears open for more information coming down the pike. But just as a kind of a star, put a note on this, there was no benefit if participants showed a high or very high adherence to like a super strict diet. So there seems to be some threshold. And once you get over that threshold, you're not getting additional benefit. So people don't have to go like militant with their diet. They just need to add in a few good foods, it looks like, to get these benefits.
I'm sure our listeners will love to hear that it doesn't have to be incredibly strict to get the full benefits.
I actually like that myself. I eat a pretty healthy diet, but sometimes I do, want a treat or something like that. And so it's nice to know that as long as you're getting in some of these items, it's going to be good enough. The problem is that many people don't get in any of these items. They eat high sugar, high, saturated fat, all processed foods. And that's where the problem is. So you've got to add in some of these things to balance out all that.
Excellent. So, guys, give it a try and let us know how you get on. So this week on the show, we have Jaime Staples. He runs a Twitch channel, which gets thousands of people watching him play. And he's also a PokerStars pro. So let's give him a call. So, Jaime, thanks for coming on to the show. If you could introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Elliot and Trisha, for having me on the show. This is really cool. So I am a tournament poker professional. I've been a professional for around 11 months now, but been playing poker for almost 6 years, actually, and recently started streaming on Twitch. So that has equally become a really important part of my life. So my day-to-day looks like I wake up and I have breakfast and sort of prepare for the day. And then I start broadcasting myself playing tournaments around 40 a day and talking to all the people and sort of explaining what I'm doing, taking questions, stuff like that. So I guess that's my poker background. I very passively in the beginning while I was in school. And about 11 months ago, I decided to really give it a go. And so that's the history.
I find it super interesting that, you're playing MTTs as opposed to cash. What was kind of your thought behind that? Because, some people believe that, it's much harder to make a living with MTTs consistently and they rather do cash. And, there's like all that back and forth. So what was your thought process?
When I first started, some of it was from early success. So I had a score when I was 19. I got 6th place in the 3 rebuy on PokerStars. And that was back in the day when it was like 11 or 12,000 for first place for that tournament. So I got 2,700 and I was pretty much hooked on the format and the idea at that point and continued with it. The thing I like about tournaments is you always have different situations. You have different tournament structures. You have different opponents. You have different buy-ins. You have tournament series. You have different stack depths. Whereas when I play cash games, I find it a little bit the same, not enough variety for me. So I kind of like the mix up that tournament poker can give you, where you get something different at all hours of the day. I do think that you have to compensate a little bit because tournaments are a much more long-term game. So you have to manage your money a little bit better, which thankfully I think is something that I've managed to do fairly well. And you have to prepare mentally, glad I'm on the show, mentally for the long-term swings that tournament poker can give you, because you can lose for a month, you can lose for 2 months, even a year if you're playing a very high variance schedule. So it's different skills, I think, different skills. Cash game players, they're pretty good at playing turns and rivers, whereas I think we have to make up for it in planning our life and our finances a little bit better.
And then just looking at that first 11 months of being a professional, was it a big shock to the system, switching from being a student to being a professional player?
For me, it was actually a pretty natural progression. When I was in school, I really wanted to be a poker professional, and I was in a position where I could have done it, but I didn't have the confidence to pull the trigger. I was following the path that sort of society and my peers expected me to go on, which is get the degree and then sort of go into whatever you want to do. And I took stock and I took a look around at some of the most successful people in their fields, and pretty much none of them took that route. They found something they wanted to do and they really committed to it. So it took me a long time to build up the confidence to make that step to go full time. But I already sort of thought of myself as being a professional poker player, even though I wasn't really operating as one. And it's what I really wanted to do with my life. So the progression actually made me feel more like myself, more basic, I'd say.
I love that. It sounds like you were, really getting in touch with what you authentically wanted to do. And then that took away, some of the stress and anxiety around it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was, I was living a life that wasn't, what I wanted. You're absolutely right. And it took me a long time. It takes a lot of confidence, I think, to make that step and take the leap of faith, but I'm really glad I did.
And then taking that step, that leap of faith, and then broadcasting it to allow other people to watch you doing that, that's something that would intimidate a lot of new professionals. How do you think you coped with that, and how did it feel as those viewer numbers were growing and, hey, wait a minute, there's a lot of people now watching me?
It's been an insane ride. I had no idea it would be what it is now when I started. I saw Twitch and I was like, oh, this is cool. I might make a little bit extra money at the end of the year and I'll be able to focus on my gameplay a little bit better because I'm sort of explaining what I'm doing. And it'll be fun. So why don't I do this on the side? I had no idea that broadcasting on Twitch would be as important to poker to me within this short of a time frame. So I started October 25th last year, and within the first month or so, I was getting around 100 viewers, which at the time was really crazy. But just with the space being so new, I realized that if I work hard, this could really become something huge. And now my numbers are averaging 1,500, 1,600 on a daily basis, depending on how things are going. So it's been a huge learning curve, just trying to figure out how to broadcast, because I've never done it before. But it's been so much fun and so exciting. And I actually think it's helped my poker game, which is kind of interesting too.
So can you talk about how being on Twitch, how has that helped your game specifically?
So before I started broadcasting, I think my typical routine was I'd maybe play a few more tournaments a day. I'd play a few more tables, but I would be in some state of autopilot where I wasn't really giving it my whole attention. I'd be distracted by, Skype or Netflix even, or forums. Whereas when I started broadcasting, all I can think about is poker, because that's all that people are asking. So people are asking questions and I'm clarifying my thoughts on poker, and it's constantly churning the poker brain, I guess, to stay engaged and thinking about what's happening. And it's also helped in spotting leaks in my games or things that I don't necessarily understand fully. So when I'm explaining a spot, like I'm going to 3-bet here for this reason. 6 or 7 months ago, I realized in some of these spots, I wouldn't know immediately why I was doing what I was doing. I couldn't explain it on the fly. Like, I'm going to 3-bet here because I think, our opponent is raising this range and this is going to work out better against his continuing range. I would be a little bit stumped and I'd have to come up with something on the fly to make it sound like, I sort of knew what I was doing. But I was able to pick out the spots. So like, okay, I need to work on this. I don't know what I'm doing here. I sort of do, but it needs clarification. I need to know immediately this is why I'm doing it. So it's helped me stay engaged, and it's helped me pick out the spots in my own game that need help.
And then off table, has it encouraged you to be studying even more, perhaps working with coaches and things like that because you're being watched? Or has it not really impacted you from that side?
There's certainly a lot of pressure to play as well as I can because it's in front of a lot of people. And, I think 95% of the chat is at a level where they are not at my level of poker yet, or they're just getting into the game. But there is definitely some of the chat that is better than me, or they play in formats like cash games where they're better at playing turns and rivers. And you can get a lot of criticism from that area. So there's definitely pressure to improve. The way I've approached studying this year is I've done it on sort of a term basis. When I'm really focused on broadcasting and playing, I'm sort of leaving the studying aside. I'm treating it as this is performance time. And when I'm into, I guess, a less packed time of the schedule, like, for example, October and November online, which doesn't have as many big series, that's a time where I really would like to work on my game on the side, be coaching other students as well as talking to, my network of players and getting their advice on things. I haven't worked with any coaches formally, but a really cool side effect of having the stream is I've been able to build up a lot of connections just through, leveraging the community. So I'm able to talk to a lot of pretty good players on Skype and get their opinion without having to go through like a formal coaching session or package. So
that's awesome. So could you just give a few of your top tips for people, who want to take their game to the next level?
I think from a tournament perspective, the thing that most people can't do is they can't be patient, which ties into bankroll management. I'm in the position now where I introduce a lot of people to the game and I see how they sort of progress. And I think, honestly, 19 out of 20 people fail because they aren't patient enough to play at the level where they're successful and move through the ranks. So I think when you're coming into the game, if you want to play it for more than just a little bit of fun and maybe you want to profit, I think you need to take your time and realize that this is an investment over years, not over, I'm going to make this amount of money this week. So I would say like that is by far the most important thing, bankroll management. And another thing I think people struggle with that I see people talking about in my stream is just general bad beats, understanding that our input is all we can control and the result really doesn't matter. Again, talking about these time frames here. So when you get it all in with aces and you lose 2-7 deuce and it's brutal, you really need to treat that as a success. And to me, it feels like a success. It doesn't really register. I've been playing poker for so long. It doesn't hurt to lose in those situations. It's kind of just what poker is. So that transition takes time, but I think learning to understand that concept, it's what you put in, not what happens.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't really understand the importance of trying to win the hand rather than trying to win the pot.
Right.
So if you've got your money in good, you've won the hand whether you win the pot or not. And it can hold a lot of guys back. And from the mental game side, when you're talking to people you've introduced to the game, do you hear a lot of stories of tilt and sort of outbursts and things like that?
Absolutely. And it's kind of nice because it takes me back to when I first started, which is fun. I get to relive those emotions and remember what it's like. But there's every day there's stories of I'm down to the final 70 in the big 11 and I busted with ace king against queen 10, and those stories happen all the time. But I understand that because I told those stories in the beginning, and it's not a natural feeling to do something right and get a wrong result. It feels like the world is against you. But I think, just again through experience and through sort of studying and the logic and working on your mental game, you can get better at those things.
Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw somewhere that you originally wanted to be a professional golfer. Is that true?
I did, yeah. From maybe age 10 or so until 18, I wanted to be a professional golfer.
So I'm assuming you played a lot of golf. And what I'm kind of wondering is do you see any transfer of maybe some of the sports psychology or mental game techniques with golf, that you could pull into poker?
Absolutely. I actually had a mental game coach in golf when I started. And it's a game just like poker that people find incredibly frustrating. And it's a game like poker in that there's no end. There's not like you can achieve it and it's over. You can always get better and improve. So it's like this mountain you have to continually climb. I didn't really get it in golf. I was, I guess, too young or too inexperienced to dispel my world of tilt. So I would get mad and, being 15, 16, sometimes I'd throw clubs and like hit my bag when I couldn't control myself. But I think it was a huge benefit to my game in that I was basically practicing for the poker mindset as a kid before I got into it. So I guess one of the things I think is an interesting parallel is I don't like to work on my game while I'm playing. I don't really think about, what should I be changing in my game or what do I need to improve on while I'm playing. It's more, this is performance time. And that's something I took from golf and transposed into poker. Because in golf, you don't work on your swing on the course. You work on it on the range. And on the course, you're just playing. That's it. You're just enjoying the ride. You're picking out your strategies, but you're not thinking about whether you made a mistake or not. So that's one of the first things I did and I do with my stream is that when I'm playing, I'm not really open for advice while I play. I think it's a little bit destructive. I think confidence is the most important thing. So that's one thing I think I took a parallel from.
I mean, that's such good advice that you're giving there. I hear so many players who they'll be concerned during an MTT that they've made a mistake in a hand, and then they'll be thinking that over, they'll be Skyping that hand to their friends, while, perhaps 10 hands have passed, they'll still be discussing the mistake they potentially made. And it means they're not in the moment and they're not thinking through those current decisions, which obviously is your only job as a poker player. So, some really, really excellent advice there for everybody to take on board.
Just to add to that, my stream is on a 5-minute delay, and people commonly ask, like, why did you do this about this hand 5 minutes ago? And I think, I've tried to hone it in so much that I commonly don't remember what happened 5 minutes ago in that hand, right? I'm taking mental notes on my opponents, but they say, why did you do that on table 3 with the Jack 10? I'll be like, I'll have to go through the hand history to check it out because it's completely gone. I try and stay as current as possible. And again, that's another parallel from golf that I think has really helped me mentally stay, equal or flat while I play.
Are you now playing in bigger tournaments? Have things changed from that side?
Yes. So in October, I was playing, the biggest tournament I'd play every day was the Big 109. I'd play maybe an average buy-in of $15 or something like that. Now I've moved up to the point where I'm playing the Super Tuesday and the Thursday Thrill. So almost the whole schedule. I'll skip some of the toughest stuff. So it really has been a progression over the last couple months of small to mid stakes to now taking a shot at a lot of those high stakes tournaments. And I've been through the progression of playing some of those tournaments for the first time and being nervous and feeling like when I'm not playing well. But now I'm at a point where I feel pretty comfortable and competent and understand that they're just humans. But people have thankfully been able to see that progression through the stakes and sort of where the mistakes were made and the successes were had.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about it because, we're getting you, I don't want to say on the front end of your career, but you're really going through all the, the hoops and the paces and everything. And so it's just really interesting to hear you talk about how you're developing and your confidence developing and confidence too, and how important that all is. Can you talk for just a couple seconds about, what goals you have going forward? Because I'm sure you are looking forward.
Well, one of the first goals I have is to get better at having goals because I have a very broad perspective on what I want to do. And one of that is be the best poker player I can in the realm of tournaments. I want to focus on tournaments, but be the best tournament player I can, get to the highest stakes. I'm really interested in winning titles, actually, winning bracelets, winning scoop events, W-Coop events, Sunday majors. Those are the things that interest me. So I'm working towards that broad goal, and maybe I should be a little bit more specific with it. The second goal is to be the best broadcaster I can, to grow my audience as much as I can on Twitch, be as entertaining as possible, introduce as many people to the game as I can. So those are the two overarching theories behind what I do every day. But it's actually not that specific.
Right.
Then from the Twitch side, are there days when you wake up in the morning, you're just really not feeling like it, and you think, oh, I've got to turn on the computer, I now have to talk to 1,600 people. Is it ever a fight, or are you always looking forward to doing that?
No, always. There's some days that definitely I'm a little bit burnt out. It's usually after, when I hit an 11-hour stream or above that the day before, I really struggle with the focus the next day. So those are the days that I struggle, and sometimes I won't stream, and sometimes I'll try and struggle through it, and the quality will suffer. But as a whole, I think I'm much more motivated to play poker in general and to work hard because you're letting people down whenever you're not there, which may sound ridiculous, but there's some people that plan out their day to watch the stream. And when you're not there, it's like a TV show not airing when it's supposed to. It's kind of a big deal. So I feel much more motivated in general, but there's definitely some days where that day it's going to feel like a job.
So how many days a week do you actually stream?
Right now, it's 6. It sort of depends on a bunch of factors like traveling and tournament series. And I was recently sick, so I missed like a week of W Coop. But 6 is what I have for the schedule, Tuesday through Sunday.
Wow, that is a lot, of broadcasting to do, I'm thinking. And that's one of the interesting things I think about Twitch, because it is such a demanding, commitment, because if you're only on every so often, it's very difficult to build that audience. So you have to really keep consistently doing it.
It's true. It's, to be successful, I think you have to put in a decent amount of time to grow quickly, and the opportunity to be sort of an influencer in this space is going to close, I think, before you can do it one day a week and grow to a huge size. But then again, just the opportunity is so great. In October, my claim to fame was 200 Twitter followers, and now I have 5 sources of revenue. I've diversified from 1 poker to 5, and I also have, an audience of people that I can rely on and work together with going forward. So it's worth it. It's a lot of hard work, but it gets me excited to wake up in the morning, makes me happy, and yeah, I think it's greatly improved my chances for success in the future. So.
And I'm sure there are lots of listeners thinking, wow, that sounds really good. I'd like to get into it. What advice would you have for somebody looking to get into twitching?
I think the first step is to just start. You see a lot of people that conceptualize and plan a bunch, and then they'll maybe do it once or twice and then sort of give up. I think you need to have that execution and follow through to actually get started. My stream was pretty poor for the first month or so as I was figuring things out. And I think that's okay. I think getting on the air is going to be the first step. And I would just encourage people to not be afraid. I was afraid. I thought people would make fun of my game, or they'd just make fun of me in general, and it'd be a negative experience. But I kind of put myself out there raw as I am, and people liked it. So that was a big sort of eye-opening experience for me and a big confidence builder. It's like, okay, you can just be yourself, and that's enough on Twitch. So get out there, start streaming, and be yourself. It'll work out.
Do you get a ton of, a ton is probably not the right term, but do you get people in the comments, maybe trolling or making odd comments or anything like that? Or is it just overwhelmingly positive?
Sure. I think, there's 1 or 2% that come into the chat and troll, but it's an interesting experience because most of the people are on your side, right? So what happens is like the chat instantly turns on them. So it's almost like a boost in confidence. Like, okay, everyone agreed, and no one likes this guy. But also I kind of try and break it down mentally in my brain in the same way that it was explained in grade school when there was bullies in the schoolyard. It's just like that person is struggling in some aspect, right? They're having a bad day or they've had a bad experience in their life. They need attention. They need to leverage themselves ahead of the broadcaster in some way to feel good. So I basically say that straight up, and there's nowhere to go from that when it's like, okay, man, like I can take the heat because I'm doing pretty good right now, and we just want you to have a good day. So get the hearts out in chat for the haters, and it's a real tough comeback from that point of view when you're real about it. So
excellent. And does that sort of help you smile through those sessions when they're being negative? That you have that control and you can just deal with whatever they say?
Yeah, I mean, when you're 100% open about everything, it's just like it's tough for people to make fun of you when you recognize that stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge sort of confidence boost in everything.
Well, I'm just kind of wondering, I know you played, what was it? There was the live thing, the poker in America. Didn't you just do that pretty recently?
Right. The Poker Night in America.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
after the World Series. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that like, taking your game from online into that sort of a live setting?
So I'd actually played a decent amount of live poker before. In the 5 years before I went full-time professional, I would play live poker at casinos on the weekends when I was in school. So I had a decent amount of live poker experience. Most of it was cash games, though. I would say the weirdest part was just being in a house, because it wasn't in a casino, it was just in a house. And, on break, sitting on like someone's bed with Antonio Esfandiari. It was just like a very weird thing to have all these people that I looked up to as I was starting in the game and being sort of an equal in this game with them. So that was really weird. But once I sat down, I felt like it was just poker. I wasn't nervous at all about the playing of hands. I was nervous a little bit about how I came off on TV. But I think my experience before that prepared me to approach it from a perspective of this is just poker. They're just humans. Let's just play the cards.
And I mean, it's great hearing him talk about the game that way. Do you feel the Twitch, the following, all of these things you've done over this year, do you feel they've built your confidence in lots of different parts of your life?
Absolutely. Confidence was something I definitely struggled with before I started streaming. And it's still something where I'm not like super confident, which may sound weird when you broadcast to that many people, but it's just like you don't really realize how many people that is on the screen. But I feel like I've improved a lot on that front over this year, just being sort of pushed into these situations that are uncomfortable outside of my comfort zone, I guess you could say, like playing on that game. Or I commentated a high stakes cash game this summer on Twitch that had, 12 to 15,000 viewers for the whole time. That was my first time commentating and not playing. So all these experiences, I guess, just pushed me outside of my comfort zone. And I definitely feel better, just more confident about myself.
And in fairness, you made it, Jem. You made it to the Mindset Advantage podcast. So you've reached that. Yeah, exactly. You've reached this pinnacle.
I was going to ask you what your proudest moment has been so far, but maybe it's being here on the Mindset Advantage podcast.
Well, that is number one, absolutely. But let's look for number two.
Okay.
I'm really not sure. It would revolve around my Twitch stream, I think, because I think my progression in poker is good, but it's been done by a lot of people. I think if you work hard, like it's really easy to replicate, going from small to mid stakes to high stakes within a year in tournaments. I think, the guest you had on last week talked about that exact process with tournament players. So I guess I'm just proud of being able to build a community, a place where poker players can go and they can talk about things, and whether they don't know the rules of the game or they're at a much higher level than me, we can all sort of dialogue and have a constructive place to hang out. So I think that's the thing I'm most proud of this year.
I mean, it's really amazing what you've been able to achieve just in such a short period of time. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Twitch grows over the coming years. I think you said you were at TwitchCon. What was that, and did you get information from that event?
Yeah, TwitchCon, I just got back from San Francisco 2 days after the event. It's the first conference that they've had, and it was a really, really cool show. I've never been to any sort of gaming conferences before, so like an E3 or a PAX East or a PAX West. So this was my first experience, but it was basically built around broadcasters, which I think is different than how the other shows work, which are based around the businesses themselves. This was based around the people that stream on Twitch. Of course, there was a bunch of businesses that they're talking to the streamers or talking to the audience and stuff like that. But there was a lot of opportunities to actually talk to and meet the people that are on the cam day to day on Twitch. There was a bunch of different panels about how to improve as a broadcaster. I went to a couple, like how to know when you need a manager, for example, if you're struggling with your time management. There was one on switching games or learning to integrate other games into your Twitch feed. So all in all, it was really cool. A bunch of information on various aspects. I did a poker panel when I was there. And yeah, just connecting with the greater Twitch community. So I really think it's going to grow to be big next year. Maybe we'll see a booth from you guys. At the next TwitchCon.
You never know. But I will tell you this. I have seen a few of your streams and I love your personality on there. And I just love the vibe that you give off on there. So where can people who don't know where you're at, where can they go to find you?
So twitch.tv/PokerStaples, that's pretty much all you need. Like you said, I stream 6 days a week, starting at 9 a.m. Eastern. I stream for about 8 hours a day, depending, of course. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 10. So that's the spot where you can find me. Come say hey in the chat, hang out, ask some questions, or just chill. That's cool too.
Jaimes, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and congratulations for all of the success. So, yeah, it's just amazing to hear about what you've managed to do in such a short period of time, and just what an exceptional mindset you have.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a great honor as well. I look forward to checking out a bunch of the podcasts. I've only heard 2 or 3 episodes, but I'm kind of hooked now. I think I want to go through and hear what everyone has to say. So big thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Cheers, Jamie. Thank you very much. So it's great to have Jamie on the show explaining just how beneficial Twitch has been to him, isn't it?
It was really interesting. And in fact, I loved everything he had to say about how it's building his confidence and it's helping him focus more and just really take his game to a whole new level.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems that it's improved him as a poker player. As I say, it was improving his confidence in everyday life as well, and also helping him with his leaks in poker. I've actually had a number of players say that when they're being watched, they play far, far better than if they're not being watched. So it's something to think about if you're out there and you're tempted. Give Twitch a try and see if it makes you play better.
Even if you didn't want to use Twitch, I feel like you could pretend or act as if someone was watching you and say, you know what, if someone was watching me, how would I react in this situation, or how would I behave in this situation? And just by taking that little minute to say, would I behave this way if someone was really watching me? I think that might be enough to trigger people.
Yeah, it can definitely help them with control. Another thing that people do is you can record your sessions with Camtasia if you're an online player and actually talk through the hands. And by talking through the hands, you then have that information afterwards. When you're doing your hand histories, you can actually look at the thought process. So you can see perhaps why you made the mistake, rather than going through the hand history and thinking, how on earth did I get here? So it's another tip that some top professionals actually use. They actually record every session, talking through their decisions. And then they have all the information when they want to find out what went wrong.
And the other thing I really wanted to highlight is something that I've talked about with a lot of people that I work with, but he really highlighted it, is performance time is separate from practice time. And, if you're hung up on, the mistake you made 10 hands ago, as you brought up in the episode, you can't be fully focused and present on what's going on right now. So you have to realize I'm going to have to evaluate that during my practice time, which is my off table time, and on table time is performance time. And I need to be fully present and doing, what I can do at my highest level in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, really, really great information there. And it's so important to take it that seriously. Take responsibility for your play when you're on the tables, responsibility for your study once it's over, once it's finished. So Tricia, where can people find out about you and your work?
You can follow me on Twitter at Dr. Tricia Cardner. I'm the author of Positive Poker, and you can go to drtriciacardner.com as well.
Excellent. And you can find out about my products and services at www.pokermindcoach.com. We'll talk to you all soon.
Bye, guys.